floor,
Mayor, if I could for one moment.
please.
It's not on this month's list of bills, however, it's certainly something that's come up recently and also our last work session about our special legal counsel that we've hired. And from last council work session, it's come to our attention that there may be 5 or 6 attorneys that are working at a time. So I don't know if there's any way that we can get a heads up on if there's been any billing. I know it's not for this,
The billing will be for the month of June.
but have we received any invoices from
Just
Dickie?
came in today.
Do we have figures on where they are for their first month?
I would have to go up and get it. I don't have it off the top of my head.
Okay. No, more than 1,000?
Oh, yeah, way
Less-
more than 1,000.
More than 10,000?
More than 10,000.
More than 20?
No, I don't think it's more.
Between 10 and 20, maybe? 30. Okay. But certainly, I mean, I have some concerns about what's, moving forward with, in light of what has come out from the executive session, also from some comments that were made from some residents, and particularly them billing for a month and not even at a point where they have spoken to the former chief, Chief Cole, Mrs. Mueller, who was the IT person who installed the system, and the fire chiefs as well. I'm not quite sure who they're interviewing, but it certainly is a tremendous amount of money for, I'm not sure what outcome that we are getting. And I do have some major concerns about that for the residents and for this municipality. We certainly have requirements that we have to go through for the Department of Health and Human Services. However, one of the requirements is not to get special legal counsel. It's just to comply with their questionnaire of items that we are to comply with. And it is special. It is for us to go through a investigation internally. And there really aren't any set rules for how to do this. It could be the manager doing an investigation internally, speaking to all the employees involved with the situation. It could certainly even be a committee of council going through and speaking to individuals. I believe the Borough Code allows us to do that, allows us to subpoena people, allows us to take written statements from the individuals that are directly involved with the dispatch and the CAD system. And I don't know why we're spending all this money for little outcome at this point. For us to learn about, in the executive session and even out here, to learn that the fire chiefs have not been a statement hasn't come from them. Our former IT person, actually the police chief Cole, or former police chief Cole, statement wasn't taken from him. It's almost insulting to this council as far as us hiring this special legal counsel. And I've had concerns about it from the beginning, where this firm came from in the first place. We were told that they were Googled, they were HIPAA specialists, and it was Googled. When in fact you do Google HIPAA attorneys Pittsburgh, they do not show up. You can't find them. For those who aren't computer people or don't own computers, Google is considered what's called a search engine. So you can type in different things that you want to look up on the internet, and it will give you results. So typing in HIPAA attorneys Pittsburgh does not show Dickie McCamey. And actually, Mr. Bresnahan, who's leading the team, if you go to his press release, he is a real estate attorney. He is a municipal attorney, eminent domain attorney. Nowhere in there does it say anything about HIPAA. We have a real estate municipal attorney on the payroll right now, in Mr. Dice, and I really can't understand why, when we got this letter from Health and Human Services, the first step isn't for him to contact them and say, "I'm the solicitor. What do I need to do? Do I need to hire special legal counsel or not?" It just raises a lot of questions. It raises a lot of eyebrows. I do have some major concerns regarding it. I know the residents do as well, and I'm not quite sure where this is all heading.
Mick, when you were in executive session and you brought that up, and I asked you, did you have an idea of who you thought in the municipality could do this objectively, which they wouldn't get criticized? How things are, who exactly do you think, or even a team of who do you think that would not be criticized by at least somebody?
Well, Borough Code states that we can do it as a committee of council.
Sure we
We
could,
can
but you don't
investigate and take written statements from everybody
Right.
and subpoena people and talk to everybody, hand all that information off to Health and Human Services and telling them what we have found, what the supposed,
How are we supposed to objectively indicate what we have found?
you submit the written
who-
statements.
You're going to have to say what you found. They asked for you to, what investigation you've conducted, what you've had, what's the outcome of it. How do we say what the outcome is objectively? I'm just saying, based on all this, everyone, like, there's criticism on both sides. Who would be objective if you don't get an outside source? And I'm just saying, you're saying within the municipality, who honestly could be an outside source of even a team to work to do this, who can do this objectively?
Well, once again, I really think that it's a committee of council can do that, taking written statements, talk to our employees. Whenever the supposed outside counsel that's independent, that's unbiased, when they're reporting to us without even talking to Doug Cole,
My
Tina
understanding, that's fair,
Mueller.
but when you first brought this up originally, I asked you, I asked you for a suggestion, and I specifically, in legal and personal, I said, can you give a suggestion on who do you think could do this objectively?
And at the time, I said the manager.
And
That's what you tasked the
Right,
manager.
but do you really think the manager would have been able to have done that objectively? Seriously, you don't think we'd have been
I would
criticized?
like to give Lynette credit to do that.
Well, you don't think she would have been criticized by somebody for her results of
Well,
investigation?
they're not her results. That would be written statements from
But then
the employees who deal with this, for the EMS people that deal with this, for
You're
the dispatch
required-
people that deal with this.
you're required to say what you've done, what you've found, your findings, not just written statements for them to make an
Findings
assumption.
that, as a committee of council, we could provide to them.
Well, you just said, first you said, I asked you originally when you brought this up, I said, who do you think? I asked for your honest opinion.
And
you
I said the manager. We can keep going back and forth with this. It's this, I don't know what you're
I mean,
trying
you
to
may
get
have
at.
asked him at that meeting, but that was his response.
But does everyone think the manager could have done that? And I believe she responded at the time that based on what needed to be done, being forensic IT, that she would not have been able to have done it.
Well, they're not looking for forensic IT. They're looking for documentation outcome of the investigation the covered entity conducted into the incident, and which is essentially,
How do you know what the breach was if you don't go back forensically within the system?
it's what the original complaint was, and what the police department says was the breach. The incident was a complaint by then Assistant Chief Pascarella on one incident that happened in the police station. So he would relay that, and it'd probably be actually the same complaint that went to Health and Human Services, and then the committee or the manager or whoever, that doesn't cost us what 5 attorneys at a time costs us, which is roughly about $1,000 an hour, what this is costing us. And we submit all that information to Health and Human Services and let them decide.
Well, why didn't you bring this up then? I asked you honestly what.
And I
you
did
said
bring it
you-
up. I said the manager.
And then that choice was made not to have the manager do that.
I'm one vote. I'm one vote on this council.
Well, then now you're
And
you're saying now a committee of council. You never said that then.
I said the manager.
Right, but you never said a committee of council. Then you said the manager.
I'm saying that now.
But we're already, the barn door's closed. We already hired them to start. They're almost done.
No.
Mayor?
When I-
Lois, I will handle the meeting, okay?
Thank you.
Please.
Certainly, when I first asked questions about this, whenever legal counsel was brought up, when I asked Lynette, I was told that she already had the go-ahead from the majority of council, so that I understand. This is a council of 7, it takes 4 to do things, I understand that. But in respect to the taxpayers and how much money we are spending on this for, I don't know how much we are actually gaining from it. I think the more appropriate thing would be to tell them what the complaint was, what we have found, the fact that it is now shut down and locked down. You take written statements from everyone involved, all the professionals involved, dispatch people, the now chief, the former chief, perhaps even 2 chiefs ago, certainly our fire chiefs and any EMS people that are involved. and you send that to Health and Human Services. And I think you also get our solicitor that we pay fair. I believe that it's a fair price that we pay our current solicitor. We get him on the phone and have him talk to Health and Human Services, talk to the investigator, and get direction from there.
I thought we received an email from Mr. Dice recommending that. I mean, I'm just saying what we received. I mean, didn't you receive that from Mr. Dice as well? All of council got it recommending special counsel.
Right, but I mean, once again, I am one vote. I don't see why, I mean, I can certainly disagree with Mr. Dice's opinion on that, but I think he's more than competent, particularly just as competent as an eminent domain and real estate attorney from Dickey McCamey. I mean, it's one thing if he was a HIPAA specialist or if it was from a firm that dealt with HIPAA all the time, but it's certainly, when the 5 attorneys that are working on this case from Dickey McCamey probably have less experience than Mr. Dice does by himself in municipal law and real estate, I think it's ridiculous that we're actually going outside to hire a team like that. And right now, that 1 month we're $20,000, close to $20,000 in the hole for this, without even talking to the IT person that set up the system in the first place, the police chief who was the police chief at the time of the alleged breach. I'm not sure if the current chief, Pascarella, was interviewed or not regarding his initial complaint in August. We certainly could have sent in this requested data that they're requesting, and then from there dealt with what Health and Human Services directed us to do.
And if Health and Human Services made a determination based on this ad hoc committee of council doing subpoenas and then submitting documentation when they're looking for findings, was rejected, and they made a determination that we're responsible for $1.5 million per incident.
The $1.5 million rhetoric is really getting old with all of this. I mean, certainly, once again...
Well, so is the implication that the attorneys that we've hired have no skill and no competence.
I'm not saying they don't have skill, and I'm not saying they don't have competence,
Well,
but they
you
certainly
did
don't...
just say that among the 5 attorneys, and I don't know who the 5 attorneys are, I just know the firm, but you said that they have less skill than our current solicitor.
That's not saying they don't have skill. That's maybe giving our solicitor some credit to say that he's...
And he's the one that suggested that we seek outside counsel and not take his firm and have his firm do this work.
I believe he should have called Health and Human Services, and I think he would have if it was a different counsel.
Oh, my.
Wow. There's the election plug.
Well,
No,
we're on
what I
this-
mean, if he had a 7-0 counsel and supportive counsel, I think that he would have contacted them.
are you implying that a 7-0 council is necessary to
You know what,
make a
folks,
decision?
let's stay focused and let's get out of the election mode. Let's just talk about the issue at hand.
Oh.
I'd like to,
I find
I
that
have
to
2
be interesting.
requests.
We're
2
talking about list of
requests.
bills. Can we approve our list of bills?
This is on the May list of bills.
While
It's
we're
not
on this
even on there.
subject, I have 2 requests of Lynette. If I'd like to see a copy, a list of the people that have been interviewed by council. and
Council or the council?
Special counsel.
Or are they going to give that to all of
And
us?
who is yet to be interviewed. I'd like to see that
I
as soon as
believe that's
possible.
forthcoming to everyone.
I thought that's what they said in the last meeting. They were going to give that to all of us.
I'm not
My
going
guess
to
is
wait,
having-
I don't want to wait 2 weeks. I'd like to see it as soon as possible. That's
Having been
it's a rather easy request.
having been involved in doing work for organizations, it's highly unlikely that in the midst of a review and examination, that they're going to give any information
Well, let me ask this
beyond what
question.
they did.
Lynette, do you know who has been interviewed?
Yes, for the most part.
And do you know who will be interviewed?
I do.
And so she has that information,
If she
I
has it,
cannot request
you're
it?
right.
Is that what
I
you're telling
agree.
me?
No, if she has it, she should give it to us.
Okay, that's all I'm asking. That, and I'd like to see what it is, I've had calls, the cost to date for a special counsel. That's the only 2 things I'd like. Thank you.
If I could just say one thing. Myself, or any of council members up here, we would not be in this situation if our past administration would have done what they needed to do back in August. This would not have cost the taxpayers a dime. And I think that's really something that needs to be heard by everyone and all the residents.
But that is your opinion, correct?
No, that is
That is
actually
the
fact.
truth.
I mean, we know that for a fact?
Oh, I
Yeah.
think we've had discussion on this, that we actually wanted,
When the original complaint was filed, if management would have done what they should have done,
And what should they have done?
they should have investigated the complaint, and they should have answered every question in the HHS letter.
So there was no investigation?
Nothing that I've seen.
You got an email.
Well, this letter, the
Well,
letter from
well, both of us.
HHS wasn't received until March 15th or March
Correct.
20th.
But if they would have contacted HHS and said, what do we do?
Well, that's what I'm,
wouldn't be
that's what
in
I'm
this
just,
vote
I'm, that's
right
what I'm just
now.
suggesting, that we should have contacted them.
Well, it was too late, Nick, at this point.
So it's too late to do it now whenever we actually get the letter, but they should have done it before they got the letter, is what you're suggesting.
well, I would like to know where you were when Mr. Silka was giving us updates that he was soon to be done on an investigation that upon his departure never existed, and whether or not that had concerned you enough to ask him question number one.
Yeah, the original complaint was not a HIPAA violation.
If everybody remembers, our solicitor said very clearly, the original complaint, there was no HIPAA violation.
But this letter
That's
is
what I
based on the
believe.
original
Why?
complaint.
But hang on a minute. Let's all go back in whatever day it was or month it was. That was the statement made by our solicitor. So that's why I don't believe there was an investigation that ensued. Once that was determined by our solicitor, I want to put words in Silka's mouth, but I'm sure that's what, I mean, if I was a manager and the solicitor said there's nothing to do, I guess I would move on. Sounds like that's what he did. Now, if that's wrong, I guess this will all come out in this investigation.
responded.
We can beat this horse to death.
We have the email, every one of us, everyone, 7 members of council, and you, Mayor, got it saying he would investigate. He at least, if that's what he found, nothing, he didn't respond back. I have completed my investigation and there's nothing here. There was no response.
Well, he didn't last too long after
Yeah, I
that.
think it was in the
This
middle
was
of getting fired.
October.
And with all
October?
deference to Mr. Dice,
I don't know what.
quite frankly, it's
October.
exactly that statement that points to why it would not be possible for us to objectively, as an internal investigation, do that investigation. His statement is proof positive why objectively we could not do this.
Well, the letter is actually a combination of a couple different complaints. The original complaint was in August 21st with then Assistant Chief Pascarella making the complaint on behalf of one resident. The way Health and Human Services and the Office of Civil Rights, I could make a complaint on behalf of Mr. Erb, even if Mr. Erb does not want to complain. I can make a complaint on his behalf, and that's what happened in this case.
I
So,
have lots of complaints, nobody listens.
and I will listen on your behalf. But after that, there was now more information given in the course of this investigation from the Health and Human Services. So the story has changed over time, and it has morphed from one incident into a couple of different things. Since I've initially in August hearing about this, there have been like 3 or 4 additional parts to it that keeps changing. And I'm not sure why those parts are changing. I'm not sure. I don't know why. But at any rate, the letter that we received
Maybe
then.
we should allow the investigation to complete then.
Well, at this point, we're stuck with the situation. But what we should
Can we
have done.
move on to the bills then?
I would like that. But what we should have done initially was answer the Health and Human Services letter, have our solicitor handle what he can handle, or at least contact them to see if he does need to hire special legal counsel. That wasn't even done. If he would have contacted them and they would have said, yes, you need it, then I would have been more okay with this determination. However, that wasn't even done. A firm was hired. Supposedly, it was Googled. They're not on Google. It's very suspicious. I'm losing faith in how they are running their investigation when they don't speak to very key people, the people you would think would be the top 3 or 5 people to talk to, when they're not talking to them after a month of work, billing us close to $20,000. It's wrong. It's wrong. For what? It's just wrong.
Nick, you seem to know a lot about the investigation as the investigation's going on, and I'd like to know what special access you might have to actually what is going on, because as I understand it, number one, you thought that this team was highly competent, and number two, we were told we would be given the results of the investigation.
Within the month, right? Within the month.
I think from the time we had our Thursday executive session, we probably were saying within the month, at least several weeks. But in hindsight, to the actual agreement as to whether or not there was a HIPAA violation, I believe I heard our own solicitor reflect back on that earlier statement of his as possibly not, with hindsight, maybe if you asked him today, he would agree that there was a HIPAA
I don't know,
violation.
Bruce,
Well,
why don't you answer for yourself?
I think that
mean,
you probably
said-
should ask him.
I mean, he's here.
I think that we
You
need
know
to
what,
move
folks?
off the
Here.
law here and get back to
Well,
the
I mean, if
bills.
you're
You know what,
going to make innuendos,
You know what, folks? We're going to argue this, and it's not one of us are qualified to even get involved
List of
at
bills.
this
That's my
point
point
in
from
the
the beginning.
investigation. We're paying it. They're paying. We have to pay the bill.
We're stuck with it.
They're hard. I wish we could have done things differently. Hindsight always
Yeah,
seems to
I
be
sure do.
20/20.
I sure
Bottom
I
line
sure do.
is, the taxpayers will know what they're putting out. Obviously, all of us are taxpayers. Obviously, when the investigation is completed, I would assume, Mr. Dice, that the public will also, should know also.
Yes.
So you all will get the information not long after we get it, so we'll know what's going on. Obviously, as you can see, it's still very tenuous on that issue. We could probably talk about this all night.
Mayor,
I
may
agree. Let's go back to
Mayor,
the list
can
of
you-
bills.
Would you mind reading Jeff's statement, email into the record that we all refer to?
You can read.
Okay. This is when we were first notified, and we asked our manager to investigate it. We received an email dated October 31st from our former manager. This was to all of council and mayor, all. Since the issues came to light in regard to the dispatch center and the method and manner in which dispatches are made and who receives them, I have been fielding individual questions and responding to each. Please be assured that I take this issue very seriously, and I've started an investigation into this matter. I will not undertake this investigation hastily, and it does involve staff and potential personnel issues. I will issue a report that will detail what occurred, how it occurred, and what procedures were put in place to correct any found deficiencies. I will also update you on any personnel action that is taken. To protect the integrity of the investigation, I will not make incremental statements until it is complete. I ask for your patience and confidence in this matter. Jeff Silka.
And that was in November, correct?
No, this was October 31st.
Okay, November 1st. And he was let go in what, December?
January 31st.
January 1st?
Certainly prior
31st.
prior to receiving the letter from the
Correct.
Department of Health and Human
But
Services.
there's, a month later, I said, do you have any anticipated time frame when it'll be completed? The answer was wrapped up soon.
Ladies and
Where's the
gentlemen,
investigation?
again,
Had this
council,
been done, maybe,
again, we can hash this over, and it doesn't edify anybody sitting here or listening in the audience. It still has to get done the way we did it. And I agree with you, Nick. Things we should have revisited that, maybe taken a little more time, but, when you have big numbers thrown, you can be fined $1.5 million for this and then $1.5 million. Well,
Dr.
you certainly don't
Griesbach-
want to do that.
Dr. Griesbach indicated the manager should do it. We asked the manager at the time to do it. It wasn't done. That's a great idea.
Mayor, excuse me.
Why wasn't it
You got
done?
counsel direct the audience. We can't hear back here at all.
Oh.
They keep looking at each other and speaking.
You know what, maybe just talking to the microphone, folks, I think that's what it is.
Thank you.
Because you all can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay. Please talk into the microphone then, I guess that's what they're, Joe has said that, if you remember. This is a direct talk mic.
We just had Dr. Griesbach indicate that the manager should investigate it, which we did ask the manager in October to investigate just that.
That was before we received the letter from Health and Human Services stating the checklist that we have to go through.
It would have been investigated.
If he would have had the letter, I'm sure that he would
Can we get on
respond
with
to
the
that.
bills? We've already
Nick
gone
has questions.
back and forth about this.
You know
Don't
what, folks?
agree.
You know what,
Can we get
folks?
on with the bills?
Yeah. Is there a motion on the floor for